Welcome to Intel Studios Veterans Matter live stream broadcast, the first live stream broadcast for veterans in the tri-state New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania areas.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of the Veterans Matter live stream broadcast. We welcome all our audience, and it is our sincere hope that today's broadcast will assist and enlighten you, or at least let you know that there's help available if you need it. If you would like your friends to participate in today's show, have them go to our website, veteransmatternj.com. Click on the Our Shows icon, then click subscribe. You can also go directly to YouTube. Click the search button, type Intel Studios Livestream, then scroll down the options until you see Veterans Matter. Our phone lines are open throughout the broadcast, and Mike will announce when he will begin taking calls. The phone number is 609-798-4475. Please be patient as the calls are answered in the order in which they appear. And now, Veterans Matter with your host, Mike Merlino.
And welcome to Veterans Matter live stream broadcast here from our Northfield studio, Intel Studios to be exact. I want to welcome all of us back from Christmas and New Year's break. Been kind of hectic with our schedule, especially my guest, who is really no stranger to Veterans Matter. He's probably one of the first guests we ever had on the show, and he's also no stranger to talk radio. Let me introduce United States Army and Vietnam veteran Mario Perrucci. Welcome, Mario.
Well, thank you so much, my friend Michael. It's great to be back with you. We go back many, many years with everything you do for veterans, from the Legion Riders to golf tournaments to, you did the Vietnam Welcome Home in Atlantic City. So your heart, not only your heart there, but your actions are there to help veterans. So it's a pleasure to be back with you.
Mario, when I think back to those early radio days, I can remember when Commander Bill Butler and I were together on the show, and on Memorial Day weekend, Bill and I would go down to Washington, D.C., and you and Joe Nichols would take control of the show and be the guest host for that week. And it was just a wonderful time. I can't thank you enough because of your support and all. Mario, you had a lot saving me during that welcome home you never received for the Vietnam veterans in Vet Rock. You came to the rescue and helped me out during a dire time, and I'll never forget that. And I also never forget, and we're going to get into it later. Mario, let me take you back. Let me take you all the way back to when you were a young man getting out of high school. What was it around the military that were you drafted or did you enlist?
I was not a draftee. I don't know if it's family radio, but what we used to call a regular, let's just say regular Army. But my whole family, my father, my uncles, all served in WW2. Okay, I had a younger uncle that served in Korea, and they all were Army. Okay, so, and I heard these stories, and one of them was a paratrooper, happened to be with the 82nd Airborne. So that's when I graduated, I wasn't going to college. So I joined, and then I volunteered for the Airborne. And it was back then, now we're talking about 1960, July 29th, 1960. And some dates, folks, I've had a stroke a couple years ago, so sometimes I got to hesitate to try to pull that date back in or, even have the right one. But it was July of 1960, and it was amazing because Fort Dix at the time was a basic training facility. So I go in and my mother says, "Oh my God, you're going in the Army?" I said, "I'm only going to be," because we lived in central New Jersey, South Plainfield. I said, well, I'm only going to be 40 minutes away. Well, I get to Fort Dix, and they're processing me in the repo depot or whatever. Next thing you know, they call my serial number, and they say bag and baggage, for a flight to Fort Benning, Georgia. I said, wait a minute. No, you're going to Fort Benning, Georgia. So that was the Army. So we got on these awful transports back then, the propeller ones, and droning away, and please God, and I say to myself, do I really want to jump out of something like this? But anyway, we get down to Benning. I had my basic training at Benning, and then my advanced training, I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, for artillery training. And then they assign you what division you're going to go in. So I thought I was going to go 82nd, but they assigned me to the 101st, which was Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And in that small period, and folks can look this up, jump training was always in Benning from World War II right up. You went to Benning, you got your qualifying jumps in, got your parachute wings, and then you went back to your appropriate division. Was it the 82nd at Bragg or the 101st at Benning? But for that short period of time, 61 to 63, Bragg did their own qualifications at Bragg, the 82nd, and we did ours at Fort Campbell, and we didn't have any tower. We had a 34-foot mock-up, they called it. So we didn't have that, like Benning has, that 250 foot tower where they take you up and drop them. Our training was simply at a 34-foot mock-up. You went out, you did all the good things, parachute, landing, falls, all that kind of stuff, and then you qualified. And then I guess they smartened up and said, no, we better move this jump school back to Benning. And by the way, just to interject, it breaks my heart because I guess of the woke military, but to change the names of those historical facilities like Fort Benning, the birthplace of the Airborne. Fort Bragg has the legendary and proud 82nd Airborne Division and the home of Special Forces. Now, to be politically correct or whatever, Benning, the name Benning is gone. The name Bragg is gone. I think Fort Hood is gone. And I don't even know what they call them now. And I'm sure they've assigned it to some worthy person from the past. But it was like, where you going? Where you coming from? I'm coming from Benning or Bragg or Fort Campbell or Hood, et cetera, et cetera. And it just was a bond to me to have served at those in those facilities. And we didn't think about the Civil War or whatever. I mean, they were part of history. They were all part of history from World War II on, right up through Afghanistan. They had the different schools, and I mean, as a soldier, you were proud to have been assigned to one or many of those facilities.
So, Mario, bringing you back there after you finished your training, how long before you shipped out?
Okay, well, this is, I'm 80. I'm soon to be 81, so I was one of the first. And let me share how that happened to me. I don't know if you can see it. It says here, I brought this article so people can say, oh, he must have made it up. It says Curry, that's the 506, that's who I was assigned to, the 506 Airborne of the 101st, reaches maximum on proficiency test. So what I did was they had a combat proficiency test back in those days. I'm sure they have a different one today, but back in 61, this was the Army combat proficiency test. and it says Private First Class Mario Perrucci Jr. shows effort on the Army Combat Proficiency Test. Perrucci is the only one and set an Army record, so that was for the whole Army, of maxing it at 500 points, the maximum for the test. And the year before that, this was 62, I'm sorry, in 61, I got a 495 on it, and nobody realized that. And not being braggadocious, I was a pretty good little athlete in high school. So that, be that as it may, then in 62, the 101st goes to Okinawa and the Philippines for maneuvers. And part of those maneuvers in the Philippines was I think it was the 1st Vietnamese Airborne Brigade. So they're with us and whatever. And then my commanding colonel, L.V. Roberts, I think his name was, I'm not sure, brings me in and says, look, we'd like some volunteers. They have something called the Red Hat 162s. These were volunteers to the Vietnamese Airborne, who, by the way, were fantastic soldiers and fighters. They were the creme de la creme for the other than the Vietnamese troops embedded with special forces. But these guys, they were the Red Hats. That's what they were called. They wore red berets. They were proud to be paratroopers, proud to fight VC and the Kong. And what was their saying again? Thinthan Sat Kong, meaning, if I remember right, kill communists by the angels from above. Okay? And they were the Red Hats. They were stationed at Tonsanu Air Base. That was their garrison thing. But I just enjoyed working with them. And then I came back. I wasn't there that long. It was a TDY type thing. And I came back. And then I re-upped. My enlistment was up on July of 63. I re-upped. I said, hey, this is good. And then in 1965, and it happened to be July 29th, the day I went in, I went over with the 1st Brigade, 101st Airborne Division, and we made what they called a demonstration jump. And it was for Maxwell Taylor, who was the commanding general of the 101st in WW2, and William Westmoreland, who was the commander. Now, this was not a combat jump. The only combat jump in Nam was the 173rd Airborne Brigade. God love those guys. They really caught hell. This was a demonstration, okay? I think it was in Benoit or wherever, and then we stayed at Cameron Bay. And then after that, I came back. I came back in December 65, I think. So that was my career.
Well,
there.
Mario, when you hear that the early 60s, the guys that went over there to Nam in the early 60s, they were the advisors.
Right.
Teaching the South Vietnamese how to use mortars and different weapons. Let me ask, were you under fire during those missions? Yeah,
you were under fire, particularly, like we would, again, I would help in the jump school for the Vietnamese paratroopers. And like I said, they were just gung-ho. They loved it. And then we would go out, and sometimes the first 2 or 3 years, I think 22 advisors were killed, our advisors. I forget how many years that was. But it was pretty much, they were doing it, you pretty much, advised and were not in the actual firefight or whatever. But then as time went on, I know after I left, they were totally embedded, and they were right in the firefights. I was more there to help train and get these guys ready. in jump school, demonstration of how to jump, how to parachute landing fall, how to slip. If anybody's a paratrooper out there, you know when you go out the door, at least the T-10 chutes I had, you got to hope the wind conditions are good. But if you want to go this way, you know, you've got to pull down on the risers and you slip. And you go that way to the left, this way you pull down and whatever. And the reason I went home was, when we did the demonstration jump, I did get hurt on that demonstration jump. So, and to this day, that's where all my problems started for my disabilities. So I was in Cameron Bay. I stayed there pretty much in garrison, and then that's why I went home. Okay.
Going back to that era of the Vietnam War, were they already starting to the use of Agent Orange to defoliate the jungle?
I do not, and I'm sure they did, because it goes back to 58. I do, because they sent the 101st when the whole division arrived in, I think, 67. I was not there, but in 67, they sent them to the Central Highlands, the famous Hamburger Hill battle, Dak To, Oshaw Valley. So they were up there then. I do not remember, I know they say one day in country you had, you were subject to Agent Orange. I don't,
Right.
I don't remember where we were in Cameron Bay. I don't remember if indeed.
Now, you mentioned 22 of the advisors lost their life in Vietnam, and it took a long time for them to recognize your being Vietnam veterans. So, are those guys on the wall, Mario?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. There's guys on the wall, I think, when we had our first casualties, and somebody can call in and correct me. I got to remember, we were there when Eisenhower was president. So we had casualties, very few, but casualties 58, 59, 60, 61, right up through when all hell broke loose in 65, 66. But there were guys, and that's why we would lose advisors, and we need more troops. And when I was there in 62, there were 13 or 14,000 advisors in one way or another, whether they were liaison, they were in Saigon, wherever, intelligence. There were guys, embedded here, there, and everywhere. So we had, and then I think 63, before Kennedy was assassinated, I think it went up to 50,000. Okay, and then once Johnson did the Bay of Tonkin, the rest is history, and we had hundreds of thousands. That's when the 101st went over. I know the 82nd went over a certain time. 1st Cal, AmeriCal Division. We had so many, 23rd Division, whatever, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some of them, but there were many, many, many divisions over there at the height of the war.
Mario, coming home that early in the war, was there still a negative vibe from the American people towards the Vietnam vets when you came home?
When I came back in 62, no, because nobody even knew where it was. Okay, 1962, 63, you'd say, "Where's Vietnam?" I don't know. You know what it is. 65 was different. When I came back in 65, it was just starting to spark. Okay, and then the guys that came back after 65, I know my cousin. He was in the Marines. He was at the Battle of what's the big one? See, I can't remember, but
Quezon.
Quezon. And I mean, he came home, and it was awful. He was with the Marines there. I remember I met him, and he just just the way they try to treat him. And once again, there's a casualty when they the VA denied about Agent Orange or whatever. He died at 57. There are many stories like that where he had a heart attack, his kidneys failed, just so many afflictions our guys had that coming home. And, it took years of hard fighting with the VA and so many great organizations where they finally recognize what those guys went through.
Mario, I want your picture of this. For the most part, we left Vietnam in '73, but it was 1975 where we actually pulled everyone out of Vietnam. And you're sitting at home and you see them give the country basically back to the communists. What was that like for you? Well, thinking about that,
someone like me, I was an enlisted man or whatever, but you see, and as the war progressed, I would follow it, of course, from home or whatever. And incidentally, the last division to leave Vietnam was the 101st. I think they gyroed back here to the States like 73. But that being said, you could see, and I go back to General William Westmoreland. I don't think, in all due respect, God rest, I don't think he had a plan. I don't think the General Command had a plan. That war could have been won like many of these wars, like Afghanistan or whatever, okay? And the problem is you've got the troops in there, and, we got to do this. They changed the strategy. It was going to be, and again, I'm trying to go back years. I think there was a strategy. We're going to bomb Hanoi, and that's going to bring them to their feet. And then there was body counts. Look how many we killed today. But there, in my opinion, just my enlisted man's opinion, there was no strategy to win that war. It was this one would come in and say, well, we're going to do this, change of command. This general said, no, there just wasn't. And it just went on and on. The same thing with Afghanistan. Our kids over there, our guys over there could have won that war in 10, 12 years, whatever we were in Afghanistan, with so many casualties, but particularly wounded, both mentally and physically. They didn't deserve for it to go out like it happened. And you wonder, it was a return to the bug out, and that's what I call it, the bug out in Vietnam. I mean, that was a bug out of Afghanistan too. I mean, you want to bring it down. I think, and again, I'm thinking politically, but I think President Trump, I think, had the right strategy. Look, it's time to get out, but this is how we're going to do it.
Right.
Okay? We're keeping this air base. We're doing this. If you start to do A, B, and C, you're going to be in trouble. For us to just go out, leave all that equipment, and advisors and people who worked with us, at the mercy of the Taliban, it brought back memories of what we did in Vietnam.
It's shameful. I was sitting here about an hour before the show, the day after we had left Afghanistan. I got a text from Lieutenant Colonel Glenn Batchinger. Glenn was in Italy,
right,
and was at the time trying to assist the refugees from Ukraine. And when we pulled out of Afghanistan, he wanted me to reach Congressman Van Drew to give him the names of the families who had helped him. They were interpreters.
Mm-hmm.
And the Department of State wouldn't do anything. And it's shameful that all these families were slaughtered by the Taliban, the ones left behind. Even their American families were left behind.
I think there's still some there, based
they
on...
can't get out.
Right, they can't get out.
It is shameful when you think about the way we left Vietnam and the way we left Afghanistan. There's certainly
some similarities for sure.
Right. And for every Vietnam vet who looks back at that time, and every Afghanistan vet that looks back, it's gotta hurt. It's, you know, so many sacrifices, so many men and women that didn't make it home, and then they give up like that. That just leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
And sometimes, you wonder, and again, just where the military, not to get totally political, but where the military is going today. It's like, how do you address your senior supervisor? Right. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sergeant. No, sir. Now I understand. And again, I can't say for sure, but I understand all that's under attack, and you can't use certain pronouns. And my goodness, let these guys and now gals, let them do their job. Exactly. We've got special ops almost in every service. Let them do their job. That's what they're there for. They're there to protect us, our defense, because you use the wrong pronoun or you're taking that you're white supremacist or, which is all nonsense. Okay? I never heard any of that. I know it was we're talking 60 years ago when I was there, 60, 50, whatever it is. But you know what? There's an old saying, there's no atheists in foxholes. And that's true. When you're in a situation, you could ask any veteran that was in combat of it, you didn't look over and say, oh God, that's African American there, or that's an Italian there. And it was, hey, we're all in this together. Let's get our asses out of here. That's the type of mentality you have as a serviceman. And then all of this nonsense that is, I don't know. It breaks my heart to see. Maybe because it's my generation and generations after me, and but it was just, you were proud. When I got those paratrooper wings on my shoulder, I may be 5'6", but I felt 6'6". Okay, I had accomplished something. Wow, I'm part of an elite unit, and it was great. And that's what you want the military to be proud of serving. And I must say, it's what is good. However, there are something you didn't see years ago was I see school children, civilians, whatever. Hey, sir, thank you for your service. And that makes you feel good. That is, so there's still hope here, but yes. That you didn't see that even 20 years ago.
No, Mario, I can remember, and I tell this story many times growing up. My dad was a decorated World War II veteran, actually liberated Buchenwald. And my brother was a Vietnam vet in the United States Air Force. Mm-hmm. He was on base, Takli Air Base in Thailand. And I can remember when he came home from Vietnam, and my dad was vice commander of the Veteran VFW at the time. We're going back around 67.
Mm-hmm.
And he wouldn't let my brother join the VFW at the time. It was a sorry state. And I can remember a couple of years later sitting at home watching the news when the Lieutenant Calley and the My Lai massacre happened, right. And all that propaganda that we were getting at home. My dad believed it. He believed that there was a lot of slaughtering of babies and villagers. And it was sad because for the until September 11th, the patriotism in this country was very, very down. I mean, we had a brief surge during the Desert Storm. It was great to see our army conquer the Iraqis in that war. but it really lacked for the patriotism. Early in the 60s, I can remember coming out of World War II and even Korea, we were proud. The flag was meaningful. But then after Vietnam, and I blame that on the propaganda. John Kerry, the things he did, Jane Fonda. And, Mario, one of the greatest things I get to do at least once a month when we have our Legion Riders meeting, go into the men's room and urinate on Jane Fonda.
I was just going to tell you that. I was going to say, come to our VFW and Brigantine. Every urinal has one. So,
so it was a sad state of affairs. But I want to ask you a question. You mentioned 60 years later, here you are, VFW commander. It could be a very demanding job. There's a lot of people you got to appease. Why, Mario, after 60 years, do you still find it in your heart to advocate for your fellow veterans?
Well, that is a very good question, and I want to go back first to something you said, and it was so true. When I was discharged in '66, okay, I figured, I've been, in country. I can go to the VFW. They looked at me like, no, your date's no. So I went 4 blocks down to our American Legion, and they told me the same thing. So thank goodness that has changed. But as far as I've been commander, I've been involved with the VFW now, because although I've been a member for many years, when you were working and you're bringing children up or whatever, it's like, and I understand there's guys today, you don't have, I don't have time to do this or whatever. But now, for the last 10 years, I've had time. This will be my 3rd year or 4th year as commander of Brigantine 6964. And, you look at it, you want to make it a great post, you want people to know about it. And we've done so many things in our post, not only cosmetically painting, doing this, but making people welcome, okay? And many veterans don't realize that they are eligible for the VFW since they've amended things. I mean, Korea is not over. It's a ceasefire. Anybody served in Korea from 1949 right up to now is a member. You've got Grenada, you've got the Caribbean, you've got any of these small, police action or situations, whether you're on board a ship, in the waters, whether you were there. So what I'm doing is trying to educate people. You're welcome here. Come in here. Become a member, auxiliary, many, like you're certainly an auxiliary member, if you wish, because your dad served and your brother served in a combat situation. So, and I want, the biggest thing I want is to keep the patriotism going, to educate younger school children and whatever about what our history is, what happened. Some schools, Brigantine, they get that. Other towns, I don't know. But we have scholarships for the 8th grade. We have scholarships for high school. They're there in conjunction with the state VFW. And it's not, I've tried to make the post, and I don't mean to insult anybody, but it's not a place now where it's mostly guys. They go in, they drink, they swear or whatever. We don't tolerate that. I want members to be able to bring in their grandchildren, their children, feel comfortable, have a patriotic family event. Where they can come in, and that's what's happening. We're more involved with the community, which I'm just so happy with. You, Michael, understand that you've been involved with the Legion Riders tremendous job. We both were on the beach in Brigantine for the polar bear plunge. And I think that's up to, I don't know, $950,000 since it was in the inception of it.
Amazing.
And that is so patriotic. You guys come in, you do so much. The Legion Riders with funerals, the last salute with Chuck Knutson. Those are the type of things that keep patriotism in our
Absolutely.
history in the forefront. And that's what I don't want to lose.
Mario, it is true, and I've been blessed probably over the past 10 years, before April Kaufman was killed, and we had that first radio show, and even going back to when April, Bill Butler, Dan Danchak, and I'm trying to remember the guy who was the president emeritus at Shore Memorial, Vietnam vet, Rick Pittman, when they did that petition drive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget the work they put in, and going to the Summers Point Bay Fest, and actually having to hear certain people say to someone like Rick Pittman, who served in Vietnam, why do veterans deserve anything? What do you guys, and all we were trying to do was get decent health care in South Jersey for, we still had a lot of World War II veterans, and, taking a bus to Wilmington or Philly. And I think that the work that was done back then has certainly helped our veterans locally. But, you're right about educating our children. It's so important. And, Veterans Day, when I was younger, we had Veterans Day all for school. We went to ceremonies. We went, and today, they barely recognize it in some schools. I know before the untimely passing of Joe Carney, Mainland Regional had a great program. Those kids there knew what our country was involved in when we were in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's shameful today that our students are more inclined to worry about Christopher Columbus's statue than to worry about the plight of our veterans. And I really, it can be quite shameful. And in my accounting practice, I have teachers all the time come through the doors and have really no real problem with the way things are going today. And it's a shame because you can see it. Look at the way our military is now under this administration. The Navy's depleted. We can't get volunteers. If things don't change soon, we're already, because of certain things that have happened, looking pretty oddly, put it nicely, in the rest of the world. I mean, it's, to me, this country is still the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen, but publicly, you'll never see that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We are, and it's like I said, it gives you hope. It's like Brigantine. I use Brigantine, and they have a teacher there. She's a gym teacher. She teaches gym for kindergarten, I think, to 5th grade. Her name is, God love her, Mindy Pomato. She's an Egg Harbor Township resident. Every Veterans Day, that school, the whole school, does something, whether it's a walk for vets, they raise money and they give it to the Elks Veterans Committee, the Legion, and to our VFW. They take, they have a presentation in the school. They always come up with something. Yesterday we went to Preferred Care, used to be Absecon Manor,
Right.
with Mindy and 10 of the 8th grade Brigantine students and many other people on my VFW staff. We went there and we presented, couldn't get in there for Christmas. We presented them bags, and I mean very nice, with toiletries, blankets, shirts for the veterans. That was the project for the 8th grade, the Honor Society 8th graders to do that. So there is hope in towns like Brigantine. I know Oakcrest, just like Joe Carney,
Right.
God rest her, had a breakfast on Veterans Day, as does Oakcrest High School now, as does Barnegat High School, a little further up. But I think those type of things, hopefully it's coming back. The biggest enemy, unfortunately, I don't know, we'll probably get banned on YouTube if I say this, but the biggest, unfortunately, is the government. You know,
Well, it's
they're the
sad.
ones that are making this ridiculous under the guise of politically correctness. And that is, let these guys and gals do their job. And another thing that really annoys me, too, is, I know the VA has come a long way, okay? I know the frontline VA people are great in Northfield, Vineland, Philadelphia, but it just breaks my heart to see these wounded warriors, and not just that, but, these different tunnels to towers. Why doesn't this government, they want to do something, assist disabled veterans that way? We give money. They just did this omnibus bill. God knows what's in it. Take care of the veterans. Take care of these.
Well, I listened to you, Mario,
Right.
when you did that speech.
Right.
I believe it was Veterans Day.
It
in
was,
Brigantine. And, we do have some bedrock communities.
Mm-hmm.
Summers Point, Brigantine, Egg Harbor Township, where the politicians are
Very
behind the
good.
veterans.
Yes.
They aren't like that everywhere.
No.
And I think that it's important, because if our politicians don't care, it filters down, all the way down, and you find your children just indifferent. We do need to see change. One of the great things that I've been proud to be a part of here on Veterans Matters the last year, having guys that are commanders locally, like Brian Weiner, Kenny, Barbara Hagerman, state commanders. There's definitely a change, Mario, in our veteran service organization. At least I can say so on the VFW.
Yes.
They are much more attuned to the needs of the veterans, and they really care. It's not. I used to talk to veterans about joining a VSO, and they're just like, nah. What, you'd sit there, drink a beer, and tell war stories? It's not like that today. I'm not saying it's not like that in some places, but at least today in certain VFWs, certain legions, you can go in, and if you have a problem, you can get help. What they've done in Brigantine has been phenomenal. It really has been, and we have people that we both know very well. Captain Rick Palatucci.
Great guy. Since he's been involved with me, I got another a shout out to Wayne Heaton. He's a West Point graduate of 1984. My adjutant Julie Browse and Lars and Charlie Gill and Lars DeBoga. I've got in my quartermaster Alex DiGiacomo. We've put together a good nucleus, and like you say, one of the biggest things that broke our heart was our last World War II vet, Ralph Williams, Herbert Ralph Williams, I'm sorry. And he was 98 years old. Not only did he serve WW2, he served in Korea, and then he served the first part of Vietnam. He was the Air Force. He was an Air Force mechanic. And I tell people who come in, members, guests that come into the VFW, if you have a problem, about benefits, this or that, come in and see me, and I will direct you to the proper VA representative. But Ralph, and to me, I just don't understand it. Ralph did not have a pension because the rules still say in order to get a disabled pension, you've got to be, I don't know, 15%, 20, I don't know what.
Right.
I'm not sure of that, so I won't throw, but I know he didn't have it. And if you look at that man's DD 214, it goes from his shoulders down to, it went to his feet. I mean, and this country can't say, hey, how many WW2 guys? God, give them a pension. Give them 400, 500, 600. They deserve 5,000 a month, but give them something. And he was losing his house. It was just
Very
terrible.
sad,
And then I wanted to get him moved to a VA facility, and that's what it was. I couldn't get him into Vineland. Listen to this, folks, if you're watching. I could not get him into Vineland nursing home because he wasn't 70% service-connected disabled. Now, if somebody can explain to me where this man fought and made sure the aircraft were in great shape so they could go bomb the Germans and then the Japanese and then in Korea.
Wow.
You have to be, and our good friend Bob, Bob Frollo. It
is.
I said, Bob. He said, Mario, that's the rule. And I was, are you kidding me? A WW2 survivor, 98 years old, and I can't get him into Vineland. So those are the type of things that we have to work on and get them changed.
Right. I had an instance maybe 2 months ago, Mario, where I was called. I know the Legion Riders were involved with a 102-year-old World War II veteran needed a ramp.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked up the information, talked to Pat Carney. There were actually 2 grants available. One based on service-connected disability, the other age, and he certainly had that, 102, right? So I called Alicia Kagan over at the Armory in Atlantic City. I come to find out that he had never signed up for the VA. He always had his own insurance all those years. So because he didn't sign up, he would have to wait 1 year in the system before he would qualify for the grant. 102 years old. So thankfully, Tommy Dixon, the president of the Legion Riders, and a few of the guys were able to get him a ramp and installed it for him. Didn't cost him a thing. But these are the
things. And you know what? I commend Pat Carney and Alicia. They're great. Like I said, as I said earlier, they're on the front line. They can do what they can, but they're within the rules, and they're not going to BS you. They're going to say, look, I'd like to do it, but this has got to happen. And I just think the bureaucracy of the VA itself, the high echelon, just like that, and say, wait a minute, this guy's 102 years old. Let's waive this. Let's say he's had to apply for 1 day or something. His DD 214, bears out. He did serve. Those are the type of things that just infuriate me.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Mario, I'm going to play a song.
Mm-hmm.
The very first time I played this on Veterans Matter, Bill Butler and I were hosting it.
Yeah, right.
You were on the show.
Right.
And it's a song by Big and Rich called 8th of November. I'm going to play that now.
On November 8, 1965, the 173rd Airborne Brigade on Operation Hump, War Zone D in Vietnam, were ambushed by over 1,200 VC. 48 American soldiers lost their lives. Severely wounded and risking his own life, Lawrence Joel, a medic, was the first living black man since the Spanish-American War to receive the United States Medal of Honor for saving so many lives in the midst of battle that day. Our friend Niles Harris, retired 25 years United States Army, the guy who gave Big Kenny his top hat, was one of the wounded who lived. This song is his story. Caught in the action of kill or be killed, greater love hath no man than to lay down his life for his brother.
As he left South Dakota to fight for the red, white, and blue. He was 19 and green with a new M16, just doing what he had to do. He was dropped in the jungle where the choppers would rumble with the smell of napalm in the air. Then the sergeant said, "Look up ahead." Like a dark evil cloud, 1,200 came down on him and 29 more. They fought for their lives, but most of them died in the 173rd Airborne. On the 8th of November, the angels were crying as they carried his brothers away. With the fire raining down and the hell all around, there were few men left standing that day. Saw the eagle fly through a clear blue sky. 1965, the 8th of November. Now he's 58 and his ponytail's gray, but the battle's still blazing his head. He limps when he walks, but he's strong when he talks about the shrapnel that left in his leg. He puts on a gray suit over his airborne tattoo, and he ties it on one time a year. And remembers the fallen as he orders a tall one and swallows it down with his tears. On the 8th of November, the angels were crying as they carried his brothers away. With the fire raining down and the hell all around, there were few men left standing that day. Saw the eagle fly through a clear blue sky. 1965, the 8th of November. Saw the eagle fly through a clear blue sky. 1965. On the 8th of November, the angels were crying as they carried his brothers away. With the fire raining down and the hell all around, there were few men left standing that day. On the 8th of November, the angels were crying as they carried his brothers away. With the fire raining down and the hell all around, there were few men left standing that day. Saw the eagle fly through a clear blue sky. 1965, the 8th of November.
And welcome back to Veterans Matter live stream broadcast. We got a couple calls coming in. We're going to take these. Hopefully, go ahead, caller. Hello.
Hey, Mike. This is Captain Rick Perrucci. How are you?
Hey. Yes, sir. I'm here on duty.
I just wanted to say that Commander Mario Perrucci is definitely making things happen. He is a shaker and a mover and very dedicated to the Brigantine Veterans of Foreign Wars. He got me to get involved, and he was a pleasure to work with. And, Mike, I want to just commend you on your veteran advocacy and tenacity with this weekly podcast. You do a great job. We have to just stir up Mike a little bit here to get him a little involved with the VFW and Brigantine. Mario?
Absolutely. Since I got you involved, and let me say, Captain Rick has been tremendous. You know, he did a couple things yesterday. We had our meeting. I said, Captain Rick, can you check on these things? I got a call the next morning. This. They're all taken care of. So what an asset he has been. And that's how we move the post forward, because we get dedicated veterans and heroes like Captain Rick.
Yeah, you know, Captain Rick's been a very, very good friend to me. It's easy to do this when you see people like Captain Rick who, and yourself, 55, 60 years after your service, you're out there advocating for your fellow veterans. Listen, I've always said that I can do this because your sacrifices. It doesn't work any other way, and I'm just very thankful for Rick, your friendship. You know, we worked very hard together for 3 years on the executive board of the Legion Riders. Passed that torch on to the guys today that are doing exemplary work, and you know, I just thank you so much for all you've been and your support.
Well, you know what they say, right, Mario? The difficult we do immediately, the impossible takes a little longer, right?
Absolutely, and you take care of it. And you know what? My wife Pat says, you know, I can't believe that Captain Rick is the age he is. I mean, he is so youthful, and he's involved with the Legion Riders and on committees and in Brigantine. And God, if we need him here at the VFW, he's there. And you're just a credit and an absolute Marine hero, Vietnam hero. And I just say Semper Fi to you, brother, and I mean that in all sincerity. And proud that I'm proud that I'm serving with you now.
Hey, you know what? It's easy when it's a smooth road when you have people who know what they're doing, and your style really is effective. I see what goes on. Just a short period of time that I've been involved with the VFW. And by the way, I was a lifetime member of the VFW starting in 1970.
Wow.
And I really, in a couple of months, I've started to get involved here. But it's a pleasure to be in your company. And, Mike, I can't say enough good about what you're doing. Keep up the great work, guys. I just want to give words of encouragement. And Semper Fi.
Semper Fi. Thank you so much. God bless, Captain Rick.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
And you're on the air with Mike and Mario. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Johnny Walker from the Disabled American Veterans.
Hey, John, how are you?
Great. I want to, first compliment and salute both you guys, and talking to you guys is like preaching to the choir.
Right.
You know, we can make changes. We can make changes with the VA, and we have made changes over the years. What we've done with Agent Orange, what we've done with the PACT Act, what we've done with the Camp Lejeune. We can make these changes, we can do these, but we have to educate our members, and we have to get our members deeply involved into contacting and following through with their legislators to make those changes. And that's where the real work has to be taking place.
There's no doubt about it. I know the lobbying with the DAV, lobbying with the VFW and the Legion, but you're right. It's got to start on the local level and get our members involved and let them know. Because when they go to use the VA sometimes, well, I didn't know this wasn't covered or whatever. So we've got to, as you say, Johnny, we got to educate them so they understand where we were, where we are now. And you're absolutely right. The improvements that have happened, but the VA did those kicking and screaming because, they would try to, as you know very well, they would try to deny it or more studies, but we're getting there. We are getting there. Like guys like yourself, Johnny, you're totally involved in educating and your magazine and whatever. So those are great things.
Absolutely. And you know it's working because the veterans today from Iraq and Afghanistan, the only reason the burn pit registry came about is because of Vietnam veterans went through with Agent Orange. And Johnny, I thank you for the article you put in about Veterans Matter. Probably almost a year ago, but I thank you so much for the work that you do in getting the word out.
You gentlemen have an open invitation anytime you have anything that you want to get out. Just send it in and we will put it in and we'll get it out. But most importantly, we're all in the same age categories here. Michael, you may be a little younger. I'm 76 years old. Most our leaders of all our DAV chapters, our American Legion Post, our VFW Post, our VVAs, we're on our 70s.
Right.
The leadership is not getting any younger. We need to pass the baton.
That's why I love hanging around with the Vietnam vets. I'm the youngest guy there. I'm 68. Yeah. But, Johnny, you're welcome also to come in here and be a guest and tell our listeners what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and I certainly would like to do that. I've been the COO of the DAV now for the last 7 years as the state adjutant. I do my magazine, and I also have a nonprofit down here in Cape County where we help vets with emergency issues. Things that the VA can't take care of that we can help. Just like you addressed, Michael, with a 102-year-old veteran. Nothing breaks my heart more than getting a phone call at Trenton and somebody saying, my father needs help. My father's 90-some years old and he needs to get into the system. Where were those siblings 20 years ago? Where were they 20 years ago when they should have been looking into their father's welfare? That kills me.
All right. Well, the best thing that you do is that article every month and getting the word out. And like I said, Johnny, come on here and let's talk about it, because nothing, at least once a month, maybe more. I see an email from you about a veteran in need, or you have something that a veteran could use, and working with Paul Junta and getting the word out. It's just one of the rewarding things I get to do.
John, that's a great point. That's a great point you made too, because particularly there are not that many left now, as we know, but a WW2, but there's still a lot of Korean veterans, and their families have got to be educated too, because they probably came back from Korea, went to work, and now certainly, in their late middle 80s, late almost 90 years old, they're going to need the help. And so your point is well taken about where were their kids, 20 years ago when they were 50 or 40 years old. So that's a great point.
Well, absolutely, and I salute the Legion Riders. There's many times I've called on them and they were right there for us. I'm in the same office. I'm right down the hall from Ken Hagerman with the VFW, and I wish there was more guys around like Ken Hagerman. He's young, he's aggressive, and he knows what the hell he's doing. And that's what we need, and that's what we need to work for. Guys, I don't want to take much of your time, but I thank you for all you do.
Thank you,
Johnny, for what you do.
And let's keep marching forward. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. We got one more call, Mario.
Okay.
And they hung up. Okay. You know, Mario, it is unbelievable the work that some of these guys do, 70 years old and advocating for you're in your 80s and doing all this work. I want to ask you a question. Let's change the subject a little bit. Where were you, Mario, on September 11th?
Wow, September 11th, I was at Surf Stadium. I was the general manager at that time of the Atlantic City Surf. Many of you in the podcast area remember the Surf. We operated from 1998. I left in 06, and I think they were there a couple more years. But I was there in my office, and we had the TVs in the training room. They call them clubhouses in baseball, or locker rooms in other sports. And my trainer was in there. He had a player come in early, and he comes running in and says, "Oh, a plane just hit the trade center." And one was Tower 1 or 2. So I went in and we started watching, and then when that second aircraft hit, we just knew. And it was just stunned silence of anybody that was there in my office or whatever. It was just awful. But what we did, of all the different events we had at the Sandcastle Stadium, Surf Stadium, and God knows what's going to happen to that now, but the best thing we had, in my opinion, we had a tremendous, sponsored by the PBAs, the police departments, the FMBAs, the firefighters, the different units, the EMTs. We had a massive ceremony at the Sandcastle Stadium. It was very somber, but very uplifting. We put all the names on the scoreboard of, our heroes that went in to those trade centers or were killed or, as the debris came down, and it was very uplifting, and I was so happy we could do that. I mean, the lines, Mike, of police cars and fire engines and EMTs were all the way down to Black Horse Pike as they entered and came onto the field, and it just was... I wish we didn't have to do something like that, but...
Well, Mario, I can remember the day after with Congress out holding each other's hands.
Yep.
Boy, we've come a long way from that, haven't we?
Yeah, do we have a speaker yet? I was watching...
We did. Last night, McCarthy got the vote in. He had to make a lot of concessions because there's a certain segment that we're not happy with the centrics.
Well, when I went to bed, he was at 216, and they weren't sure if that was going to do it or. But he was named.
He got it.
Okay. Wow. And you know what? And switching that way, people have different. Well, they shouldn't have done. I think those 20, had a common cause. They knew they weren't going to name somebody else. However, they were looking, in my opinion, again, just my opinion, they were looking to make the needed changes. So they, just like that omnibus bill, they don't just jam it through. Just jam it through. And, you got 24 hours to read it. Okay, fine, read it. And then you really look at it and you just shake your head, and this is where our money's going. So, if he's the speaker now, I think those 20 holding out served its purpose. Again, that's just my opinion.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, you may not know this, but every Wednesday night here at Intel Studios, 7 to 9 p.m., my son, Chris Merlino, with the Chris Merlino Show, and yes, it's a conservative news show, and it's definitely slanted to the right, but it's a very honest and informative telecast. I think that if you tune in, go to YouTube and put in the Chris Merlino Show, it'll come up, and all you got to do is click on it, and you'll get it. It's really an informative show, and you don't get all the junk that you get with some of the other newscasts. And you definitely get what's happening across our country.
So when is that?
So every Wednesday, 7 to 9 p.m.
Okay, I'll have to.
Yeah, I'll get an email out to our listeners
Right.
so they can.
Now, how is he just starting now, or is he done?
It's been on for a couple months.
Okay.
Mario, let me ask you a question, because a lot of people, because you've been probably out of the talk radio business for quite some time, and you mentioned about your involvement with the surf. Gosh, Mario, this stadium sitting there, and what with Atlantic City? Does it just? Why doesn't sports work in Atlantic City? What's your opinion, and what could change it?
Well, first of all, it doesn't have. When the surf came to town, I'll talk about two different sports teams that this town has had in recent memory. One was the surf. The surf, Frank Bolton and Tony Rosenthal, they were the owners. I think they brought it here in '98. It was built with CRETA money. It was a political fight too, and between Jim Whalen, who wanted to do it, and Bill Gormley, who really controlled CRETA at the time. Okay, but the CRETA funds were freed up. The stadium was the city of Atlantic City gave X amount, and CRETA gave the final amount to get it built. It was built, and I think the ownership thought once they came to town, everybody would say, "Oh wow, this is great," and all the casinos would jump aboard. Well, that didn't happen, okay? Because as the casino moguls even told me when I got involved 2 years after that, we're in two different businesses. You want to keep people there watching a ball game. We want to keep people here in the casinos, okay? So they really, some of them did to a point. And then the bullies came to town, and the bullies got subsidized for 2 years, and they thrived. That third year, they needed a subsidy again. They didn't get it, so what did they do? They left town. And going forward, a lot of politics, and I may get some pushback on this, but I don't care. It's fact, because I lived it. After the final ownership had it, they let it just run down. They kept skimmed the profits, whatever they got, and boom, that was it. The team left town, like snuck out of town. And I think it was 2008 or 2009. Since that time, I myself had tried to negotiate with 3 different mayors, mind you, to try to bring a team back in, because I did have some folks at the time that wanted to put an exploratory group together to see. And each time, each time I would try to do that, Frank Bolton got back involved with the situation. Okay, now, and then all of a sudden, I wasn't invited to the meetings. They were going to do it, and then I guess they gave Bolton 60 days to come up with a plan, and of course, he didn't want to do that, or he didn't do that. He was looking for more money from the city, and it's a shame. It could have worked, but the worst period of time is when the team went through there were 3 or 4 mayors in, I don't know, 18 months. I can't even remember who they were. And I will say Don Guardian did want to do something, but the city tied his hands too. So in order for, I guess, to get back to the actual question, in order for a team to work in Atlantic City, you have to have everybody on board. You've got to have the community that's going to support it. You've got to have business that will support it, and you have to have the city that will certainly support it and give you the help. And the other thing with the surf was, you can't draw from the east because that's the ocean. So what they had was their market initially wasn't too bad. But then Camden opened up and took
The River Sharks.
the
right.
River Sharks and took the fans from Williamstown and that area that used to come to the surf. And then the death blow was when Lakewood opened up,
Blue Claws.
and they are Philadelphia, affiliate.
Right.
And people got a chance to see the baby Phils that, someday would be playing in Philadelphia, the Citizens Bank Park. So that's all, and it was like a perfect storm why that team just couldn't make it. It was egos, it was
Well,
support.
Mario, one thing it wasn't was a lack of winning. Just
Right.
Surf won, the Bullies won, and I think when you talk about the casinos, that's it in a nutshell.
That's it.
They won't support anything that draws people away from their
Nope.
building, and it's a shame to me.
And this area needs family entertainment, okay? I mean, I think they're coming around to see that there's a water park going in.
Right.
Excellent idea. I think finally it's not all casino. I think they're starting to see, well, we need some more attractions, family attractions for the local area. But, this not only did I lose a lot of money, but it broke my heart. The Atlantic City Surf, going down the tubes, and hopefully maybe somebody, in order to bring it, and I don't think another team will ever come back. I think they're negotiating to do something with that whole parcel, aren't they?
Right.
To do the whole thing. The stadium's deteriorating. You can only last so long without having occupants in it and renovation and maintenance. I mean,
What would really make sense? At least they should have done it until something was done with that properties. Why not have Stockton's team in there?
well, they did play a couple games in there, but I think they could have. You're absolutely right. And something I did in 2004, and again, the politicians, what I did was in 2003, I had the Northeast League, which was colleges, Northeast Conference, I'm sorry. Right. And I think we had the Bucknells, we had this, whoever was in that conference at the time, they're always changing. And that was great. We had the college teams locally come in, play tournaments. We had band competition there. We brought the different high school bands in there. We had a couple concerts. But everything, when you dealt with Atlantic City, I'm sorry if I step on some toes. I call it, at 80 years old, I don't care. It's just too much. It was too much bureaucratic nonsense. Everybody, well, you got to do this, you got to do that. And when you have so many administrations, one after another, you can't deal with them.
Right.
And then CRDA was not happy because of how it was negotiated between the original owners and CRDA. And see, the stadium, which the city did not know this. I'll give you, did not know how that worked until 2005. Okay, now here this stadium's here since 1998, right? And I'm getting blamed for everything. Well, this, and the owner of the stadium was Creta. They owned the stadium. I'm sorry, the city. And the city, for $1, leased it to Creta, who collected the rent and then passed the rent on to the city. But the city's been saying, oh, we don't own this, Creta owns it. Every time I go to them and say, we need this fixed, now got to go to Creta. So it was just so convoluted and just, it was a nightmare. It really was.
You know what, I don't know if this is the right place to talk about this, but I always wondered if you really want to make Atlantic City thrive, why don't they build a huge football stadium and bring Division 2 or 3 football to Stockton? Make it. Las Vegas has it. They have. That's where Randall Cunningham went to college.
You know what? It's ironic you say that, because we were talking today prior to me coming on the show at the VFW, and we were talking about the area, and I could never understand. Stockton is wonderful. They're doing this great expansion and whatever, and I can remember asking when we had the stadium there, I would say, you know what? If Stockton had a football team, they could play their games here, because what we could do is get a movable outfield fence, okay, that hinges out, and then you can close it, and you'd get your 120 yards safely and put the pads up or whatever. And I was told, I don't know if it was Harvey or whoever it was, well, you'll never see football at the Stockton. And there's so many great kids in this area that play D3 football, even D, and they're either going to Rowan, they're going to Widener,
College of New
Jersey, Muhlenberg, or Sinus.
Right.
Those kids could stay right here, finish their their college
and the
days.
Families can see the
families are right there. They would fill. I never could understand that. Why they wouldn't do it, particularly now as large as they're getting. They're not a little country school anymore.
All right. You're listening to Veterans Matter here, and our phone number is 609-798-4475. If you have something you want to add to the show, you want to ask Mario a question, feel free to give us a call. That's 609-798-4475. Mario, another event that we were talking about before the show, that this was the first year you didn't get a chance to participate, and that's the tee off for vets over at the McCullough's Emerald Links. And that's, when I go back to the infancy of that Mario, that was unbelievable. I don't know if you remember that first year. And Mick Ebert was the chairman. And first time I met Eddie Afanador, Sonny put together that committee, and it was the first golf outing I was ever involved in.
What did we call it? Were we the Wounded Warrior?
Yeah, it was a Wounded Warrior golf outing.
And
April was still alive.
April was served on it. Joe Carney. Oh my God, the gal that used to work for you. Who used to work for you? She worked in here.
Dawn.
Sorry,
Doyle.
Dawn, if you're listening or watching. Dawn. She was involved, and
of course John and Ellen Rush.
Right, John. God rest him. Ellen Rush.
I loved working with John. I really did.
He was a pistol boy. He was.
He knew a lot of people, because if it wasn't for him, when we decided to expand and we went and did the Boogie Nights thing up at Trop, Steve Callender got pulled in and did so much for veterans. Unbelievable. Now today, they're still out there doing a great job. Ellen Rush is the chairman of the golf outing now, and I know every year the Legion Riders escort the veterans from Meadowview over there for lunch before the golfers come in, and it's always a great time for the veterans to.
You know what about the Legion Riders? That was the same 98, 99-year-old veteran that I was talking about that I couldn't get into Vineland Nursing Home. When he did pass away, I've always seen the Legion Riders. They're always there at the funeral home, and I saw, firsthand, because I was in the second car or something going out to the veteran cemetery. I was just amazed of what the Legion Riders do. They have two guys run, on the outside and act as roadblocks, and one rider almost got hit. And I'm saying, God, people want, but just what they do, and they lined up, and for his funeral, we had a whole escort of the Legion Riders, and they're always there.
Right.
Just like you said, you call them, they're always, as long as, you call them in a funeral, you never have to worry. Even if there's only 4 or 5 there, they will be there.
Yeah, and over the years, and I'll never forget this in my entire life, because Tommy Dixon and I were talking about this the other day, the funeral for John Palmentary in Atlantic City. It was just about between 5 and 10 degrees out when we headed over from Absecon. And, you're going 50 miles an hour on a motorcycle. At 5 degrees, it's about a 35-40 wind chill factor, and it was freezing in Atlantic City, that wind blowing off the ocean, and I'll just never forget it. And these guys, we have a lot of Vietnam veterans, Paul Junta, Captain Rick, that rode that day. I'll just never forget.
So I'm saying Captain Rick, he's about my age, and I can't believe it.
Yeah.
He's on his bike, his buddy Franny.
Well, one of the greatest things in my life, I was just so lucky. We went on a 15-day cruise. My wife and I, Captain Rick and Joanne, and George Muller and his wife Priscilla. We went on a 15-day Panama Canal cruise. And one of the things I wanted to do, I've been on a few cruises, but I wanted to get up on the bridge. And it's difficult. Yet Captain Rick, I don't know how he does it. He went to them and to whoever was in charge, the captain of the ship, and got us on the bridge.
He's absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
like I was telling you the other day at our meeting, we're having our our second annual golf tournament, golf outing, and last year's was wonderful. But May 25th, which is the Thursday before Memorial Day weekend, but there were certain things that had logistics that had to be squared away. He squared them away like that, overnight. It wasn't, Mario, I'll get back to you. Give me a week. He did it.
He is amazing. And, Mario, a lot of the Legion Riders, the executive board today, they just got sworn in. Guys, quite a few of them. Gene Nace, Franny Chambers.
Chambers, Jeannie. Right.
Cowboy, Don Landry.
Right.
All these guys. But Tommy Dixon, Bobby Taylor, Kenny Steitler, they, just what a great job they do. And it's work. I mean, everybody's got families, and yet, and you'll know this because you have to have the support of your wife. Your family has to support you. You never get it to work. So even as commander of the VFW, you got to be there. And if there's something going on, you're responsible. So, it's very important to have family support.
And it's amazing, like the general public, and understandably they don't know it, but when they see at at a veteran's funeral and they see a contingent of the Legion Riders, okay? They see a contingent, and then they see Chuck Knutson and Jamie Knutson and a last salute. They assume, and they did, I've known people in Brigantine, they assume, well, the VA pays them. And I have to say, those are both volunteer groups, so I would encourage you to give them a donation.
Right.
Because that's all they work on. And but a lot of people just,
Yep. I can't speak for Chuck, but I know for the Legion Riders, every single dollar that they raise goes to support our local veterans.
Right.
And I'll be announcing this probably every week between now and May 7th. May 7th is our spring barbecue. And it's one where we do not have a ride in conjunction with it. You just 12 to 4 or 1 to 5. I'll get the flyer soon. But it's an opportunity for the local people to come out and rub shoulders with our heroes, the guys who gave us every freedom and liberty by their sacrifice. And, it's a great time. It's nothing better than to see
now you
guys
do
like
T-shirts
Bob
for
Frollo.
you do T-shirts with that one?
We don't do T-shirts.
Okay,
for
it's the one in October.
Right.
Okay, so make sure that VFW 6964 again this year is a gold sponsor. Okay, because we appreciate you guys coming over to Brigantine. Like I say, for so many situations, whether we're having a Veterans Day parade, whether we're having the Memorial Day ceremony, something else going on, you guys are always there.
Well, it's easy to do it, Mario, when you have a community of people that care about their veterans. And you guys have the Elks over there.
Yep.
At least 2 times a year when we're not involved with COVID, of course, they'll bring the veterans from the Memorial Home, Meadowview, Vet Haven South, and they bring them in the summer. They put them on a fishing boat. They take them out, and then they come back. They feed them, Mario, steak, lobster. It's just unbelievable how the Elks support our veterans.
And we can go right into another topic with that. One thing that I do want to get, one of my resolutions for 2023 is to get the American Legion in Brigantine, the Elks Veterans Committee, and us together, and let's all sponsor, whether it's Memorial Day, right now, Memorial Day, the VFW does it. The Veterans Day, Memorial Day, the Legion does it. VFW, that's just the way it's been in Brigantine for years. Veterans Day, the VFW does. We're getting less. We want more involvement, but I can tell you this, that Elks Veterans Committee, their chairman or president is Joe Kelly. That man is just they bring from the nursing homes, they bring them in for the Army-Navy game, and 4 or 5 times a year, what they do is they prepare meals, and they put out the word. Any veteran who wants a free meal, come and pick it up at the Elks Lodge, okay? And if you can't get there, they will deliver them. And it's not hot dogs and beans, brother. It is filet mignon. It's crab cake sometimes. It's a big clams oregano. I mean, just tremendous. But that's all working together. That's everybody working together. And I can't say enough about Joe Kelly and the Veterans Committee of the Brigantine Elks. Just great.
On another note, and something not really a positive note, it's actually something I have found pretty disgraceful. Mario, I don't know if you are aware of what's taking place at the Absecon post office. Did you hear anything?
I did not.
You'll love this.
Right.
You won't love it.
Yeah.
You'll be really upset. A resident of Absecon, this all got started because a resident of Absecon went to Harry Hurley. And since the early 2000s, there was a display at the Absecon post office, a bulletin board, that contained the photographs of resident military members who were killed in action. Nice setting. Found out that they had removed it and they painted the walls. Everyone figured it's going to go back up. They won't allow it. Unbelievable. They're trying to find out, and Harry will get the information, but they're trying to find out whether it was the postmaster or a supervisor who exactly said no to this.
That's just unbelievable. How is that even political? Okay, here's guys that gave their lives. I remember going into Atlee School in Absecon. The same thing, because I had two grandkids, Noah and Ian, that went through Absecon schools, and on the wall there, and I really could, I really could associate. I think they had 4, I believe, of 1 Marine, 3 Army that were casualties of Vietnam. And they had their pictures, and they grew up in Absecon, and they attended Absecon schools. And I said, wow, that's great. That is really great that maybe these students come down and look and see guys that gave the ultimate sacrifice. And when they were young kids here, they were in the same school you were in and attending here. So I thought that was exemplary on Absecon's part. I don't know if those kids are still up on that board, but the post office, hey guys, that's the United States government, and these kids gave their lives for the United States government and the people of the United States. And to do something, that's what I'm saying. It's just, everything's just getting whacked out.
It is. Harry used to use the term bizarro world.
Yeah.
And it is crazy.
It's getting worse and worse. Just like I said, changing the names of the Army facilities and, taking down statues or whatever. And it's amazing. The song that you played, right? It was, I'm trying to paraphrase, but it said that a black medic went around picking up, those guys lying there could care less whether he was African American or what he was. He was winning the Medal of Honor, picking up his buddies who were white and black and whatever. So that's the goodness of the United States. It's not this crazy wokeness. When the football player got, I was shocked when the football player, God bless him, looks like he's recovering.
Right.
But on ESPN, I couldn't believe it. They actually said a prayer. Now, prayers is wonderful. I mean, that's old-time Americana. Let us pray for our brother, right, that is hurt and is fighting for his life. That's what America was before, and hopefully we're getting back to that.
There was a comment in this from the American Legion Post 28 in Absecon. And it says, this is no way to honor our fallen brothers and sisters. And I'm hoping both the Legion and the VFW over there in Absecon take exception to this. And hopefully, I know, I'm trying to remember who, the mayor, Nick Larrotundo in Absecon reached out to Congressman Van Drew. Now, we know Congressman Van Drew was busy up until late last
Right.
night getting a speaker at the days, but hopefully he'll come back home here and find out it's a government facility, find out why, some obscure something, maybe. I just think it's, if you're going to do something and there's a reason, then you let the public know, you let the veterans organizations know. But to just do it indiscriminately, it just seems like there's something behind it. That's
absolutely. There's, and what can be more patriotic than putting a picture of a fallen on the wall and honor them, so people don't forget them. They're not here to enjoy life anymore because they made the ultimate sacrifice so we can enjoy what we do in this country.
Amen.
So a picture on the wall by a federal post office or whatever it's just, to me, it's just, you got a federal entity there, and there should be it's not political.
Right.
It's not saying, guess what, I only want Democrat on the wall that made the ultimate sacrifice, or I only want Republicans. I don't want this. I don't want that. Or we need diversity. It's just crazy nonsense.
It is, and I'm hoping that Harry gets to the bottom of this early this week and can give us an idea of what really happened, because it's a lot of unhappy people out there.
Well, they should be. There's no rhyme or reason for that. That is not even controversial. So am I getting this correctly? Somebody went in there and complained about it?
We don't know.
Don't know.
No. We just know that they took it down to paint the walls, and when it came time to put it back up, they were told no.
So there was no response.
And there's also I don't know if this is a fact or isn't, that somebody actually took it. Once it didn't go back up, someone left with it. And hopefully, if they did, it was someone in the community. Maybe give it to the VFW or the Legion or something. But it's sad to think that a government facility.
Well, did the postmaster make any?
It doesn't surprise me, though, Mario.
No, it doesn't.
It certainly doesn't surprise me.
Did the post office make any? The postmaster make any statement?
Would not.
He would not. He would not. I
Can't.
can't comment on it. That type of response.
Yeah.
I don't want to comment on it.
Yeah. Let's get back to what we were involved in a week ago on the 1st of January every year. The city of Brigantine hosts a polar bear plunge. It's funny. I see pictures all over the press about Atlantic cities. There must have been 15 people there.
Mm-hmm.
Brigantine had thousands, and the people turn out to support veterans because the money that's raised goes to Fisher House. You're a big part of it, just like the Legion Riders were, with $2,500 donations. How is that received by the rest of the people of the VFW? Are they all behind that?
Oh, yeah, you mean the Fisher House?
Yes.
The Polar Bear Club? Oh, absolutely. And, we've actually, Fisher House, when it was started, the biggest donators were the VFW, not per se ours. I'm talking about nationwide. And now it has become, Trish Cosgrove, who is the chairman of that. I mean, she works, and all the volunteers she have now that they put up the displays, they bring in all the merchandise, they sell the merchandise. I mean, and the response I had people coming to the VFW, and I felt sorry for them, the day of the plunge afterwards, and 2 days later, is there any bear wear left? And, little kids. Well, my daddy said if I do the plunge, I can get a shirt. Well, the shirts were gone. I felt so bad for those little kids, little guys. So I would say to people, you're going to do it next year, get your bearware early because it's on sale.
Goes quickly.
It's on sale from Black Friday right up inclusive of New Year's Eve. And then they sell whatever's left on the beach after the plunge, but there's not much left.
No, especially the small sizes. They go pretty quickly.
No.
It's funny, I had heard over the years, the Legion Riders have been doing this well over 10 years. And I'd heard people say, why do you give the Fisher House? There's nothing local about that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, about 5 or 6 years ago, we had a Marine that died in Hawaii during a training exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And he was from Egg Harbor Township. It took weeks for the government to release the body and return it to South Jersey. The family, because of Fisher House, was able to go to Hawaii and were given a place to stay at no cost. They flew them there and flew them home at no cost because of Fisher House. And there's Fisher Houses, there's 2 or 3 in Germany.
Right.
Because that's where our men and women go who are mortally wounded.
Right.
And the work they do is just, no one else would do it. It's
It is. I mean, people, say, well, Fisher House, what do they do? And I explain to them, look, you can look them up, but what they do is they take care whether a serviceman or woman is deceased or they're getting treatment operated on, they're going to have a extensive hospital stay. Fisher House will get the relatives in there, the mother, father, husband, wife, or whatever. And just like you said, they'll put them up, they'll give them transportation there, and they'll put them up in lodging. And when you're worrying about a wounded or hurt loved one, and you say, oh, well, God, we got to go out to Hawaii, where are we going to stay, what's going to do? And somebody steps up like this organization and says, you don't have to worry about it. You'll have plane tickets, you'll have a place to stay, you'll have meals or whatever. So,
right. And everybody in the medical field will tell you that the healing process works best when the family's there.
Right.
So, it is very important. It's a great thing. And it's just a great thing. It's not just a polar bear plunge. There's so much more involved in this activity. I commend the city of Brigantine for doing this. And I'm happy to be able to participate. I'm really happy when you ride a motorcycle and it's 50 degrees. I love it.
Yeah, that was. And you brought up something that got my thought process going. You're absolutely right. This thing has been getting bigger and bigger. We had drone shots of it. I think it started like on 13th Street and it went all the way to 18th Street. All these blocks of thousands and thousands of people. Yet there's never any publicity about that in the press of Atlantic City.
They go to Atlantic City.
It's just never. I don't know what it is. The only time I see anything about Brigantine in the press of Atlantic City, if it's detriment to the city, I have even contacted them because we do our Veterans Day celebration not on Veterans Day like many other cities do. We do it the Sunday before or the Sunday after, depending when the 11th falls.
Right.
We have contacted the press. We have never a reporter out there, never anybody taking pictures out there. And it's a little, I won't say depressing, but a little, you get a little tainted, like, well, what the hell's the sense of calling them because they're not going to send anybody. Even if you send a picture in, they don't put it in. So
it's a shame.
Yep. But thank God we got the Brigantine Times there.
Right.
Emmett Turner does a great job.
And if Trish Cosgrove's listening. Commend you and the work that Mary Considine does from Fisher House. And the work, this is a year process. They're working on next year's already.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
And unless you actually see it, as you said, in action, like when they brought all the bearwear in, the different sweatshirts, this, that, whatever, I was just, oh my goodness, from sweatshirts to hats to, magnets to everything. I mean, they're just there, and they have their army of volunteers that come in, and it just is. It's just so commendable for what they do, and people have to understand that. Many times people say, "Oh, well, the plunge." But there's a lot of work that goes in before the plunge, including with the city and
they had to move it this year. Right. For years it was at the lagoon.
Right.
And this year they had to move it because I think they're doing some kind of renovations at the lagoon.
But it was a windfall for all of us. The restaurants, the Elks, the VFW, we all got a little piece of the after plunge,
right,
which was great. It really was great because, as you said, normally they would go into the Laguna Grill, and that was a captive audience. My goodness, VFW was full. I know the Elks was.
Oh, the Elks, from what I hear, I went home afterwards, but I heard that you couldn't move.
Couldn't move. They had the Billy Walton band in there, and we had a young guy in there, Nick Rossi, but we had entertainment. Football was on. I know the Cove Restaurant and the Cellar, Andre's, everybody had got a piece of the action, which is the way it should be. It was a real community deal. I mean, Vince Serra and outstanding. Just
Mario, what do you think the chances are of them getting the armed services parade back in Atlantic City? But back when Pinky Kravitz was alive.
Yeah.
I know Marco Polo Smigliani played a big part in that too, and it's tough. The city doesn't want to help.
It goes right back to, as we were talking about a half hour ago, cooperation from the city, from this, from that. No, absolutely, and I think that was in conjunction with the air show, wasn't it?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that I had completely forgotten about that, but
it's a shame because they don't honor veterans like that often, and it was so well received. 3 or 4 years, we were very lucky. The Legion Riders were right up front.
Yep.
The only ones in front of us were the ACPD motorcycle guys, and it was great to participate in that. Mario, what's going on? Is there still American Legion baseball?
There is still American Legion baseball. There really is. Now, I don't know the closest down here. I know there's one in, as you go west in South Jersey. Okay, but God, I played Legion ball. Oh, that was I played in 57, 58. Captain Rick played Legion ball. I mean, that was the startup of you want to really play organized ball because, not that many back in those days went to college per se to play baseball, and that's where the major leagues would look at Legion baseball. And Legion baseball was the thing back then. But, I commend the American Legion to keep it going. They're still keeping it going. There's not as many teams as there used to be, but they're still having Legion ball, and they give the player of the year in each state. He gets an award. So I hope that goes on but in this day and age, unfortunately, these kids like these video games.
Right. And, I was approached a few years ago by the city of Wildwood to do the Vet Rock on the Friday of the Roar to the Shore. Mm-hmm. And, of course, we all know that there's no longer a Roar to the Shore. Mm-hmm. What I would love to do, Mario, is maybe meet with some people in Brigantine about putting together Vet Rock on the beach there. You know,
that would be doable for sure. Absolutely. And one thing about Brigantine, unlike in, people may say, oh, well, he's pissed at Atlantic City over this. No, it's that they don't. And Mike Merlino, wore his, his heart right on his sleeve. He did everything he could to put on this Vet Rock. I don't know. And the city, I remember talking to you and I said, Mike, let's not listen to them. Let's have it inside the stadium where,
they wouldn't let me.
They wouldn't let you do that, and they made you have, 100 bathrooms. The made you have the vendors out on the damn runway. It was like, it was awful.
And I'll never forget the meeting. Mm-hmm. It was like 8 days before Vet Rock, Thursday a week before mm-hmm. Vet Rock. Tom Foley, a great guy at the time, was emergency management director, did everything he could to make this happen. But I had to meet there. Luckily, Don Hurley was with me. Had to be 150 people at this table questioning every little detail. It was unbelievable. But I would love to do the welcome home you never received mm-hmm. again. We're at the 10-year mark from the 2013 Vet Rock. Maybe get together with Vince Cira and the people who make things go over there, the leadership of the VSOs, because that's really where it hurt.
Right.
The first time. But I know
and I know what happened with that, too. I wasn't fully involved but I know where that nonsense came from, too, in some of the VSOs.
Right. But I think the District 16 VFW today is so strong.
Yep.
And all of the commanders, I think, do a commendable job.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what you have to do. You have to, keep things moving.
As we wind down here, Mario, I'm going to give you the last word. If you were to be invited to a local high school at their commencement exercise and you were to talk about a career or just being a part of the military, what would you tell today's young people?
I think today's young people, I would say that the experiences I had in the service last you a lifetime, okay? The services of today, however, I don't know if I could really say this, go in, have a great career or whatever. There's just so many, to me, roadblocks. I'll tell you what I would have said to him 4 years ago. I would have said, you may not want to go to college. Right now, the military is a great situation. You can build up your credits to go to college. When you come out, you can then pursue another career, and that experience in the military will give you a leg up as being a leader and going forward.
Well, you heard it from the best. Mario Perrucci, who used to call Super Mario during the talk radio days. To Al Zetmeyer, Mario and I both send our best. Hope you're feeling better and back here in the studio soon. And as we say at the end of every show, if you love your freedom, thank a vet.